Committed by their own government of Saudi Arabia. Pakistan, WikiLeaks, US government cables indicate $100 million going to the Deobandis and the Ahle Hadith for things like targeted Shia killings coming from the Gulf donors and Saudi Arabia. Nigeria, Sheikh Zakzaki tortured, his followers murdered in the Zaria massacre by President Buhari and his military thugs, all because the Sheikh spoke out against their masters in Saudi Arabia. Bahrain, for decades the ruling Khalifa family had suppressed the people, acquired $40 billion worth of land for themselves, like paying 1 dinar for the iconic harbor area. The people revolted during the Arab Spring, but their peaceful protests were in the Pearl roundabout were crushed by the foreign tanks of Saudi Arabia. Syria, tell me, even if you hate Assad, would you join up with the al-Nusra wing of the ISIS and Israel just to unseat him? Yep, you would if you were Saudi Arabia. Qatar, despite a stifling blockade, had a 3% growth and a whopping 70% increase in new companies moving in last year. So the policy that really backfired was that of Saudi Arabia. Palestine, the world was aghast as Israeli resources, bombing ports of Hudaydah, agricultural lands, even fishing boats by the pilots of Saudi Arabia. UN stated over 10,000 Yemenis dead, 80% in need of emergency assistance. UNICEF, 1 child dying every 10 minutes. World Health Organization, cholera endemic affecting 1 million. And therefore, Amnesty and Human Rights Watch have said war crimes have been committed by the government of Saudi Arabia. Iran has been blamed for Yemen. But the 2015 United Nations Security Council report, Carnegie Center, Bruce Rydell of Brookings Institute, US analyst Christopher Boyce have all stated Iran's role was small. It was mostly due to Saudi Arabia. Wahhabism, not Islam, is the religion of and that is
But these people don't believe in any kind of jurisprudence. They don't believe in Islamic law. Disrespecting this great scholar of Salah and his Salam is originally disrespecting all the Jews around the world, all fuqaha in Islam. Again, my message is today, don't believe the impression that they are changing the policies and they want to show Muhammad is a man of hero in Saudi Arabia.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Zainab Hussain. I am the official spokesperson for the Baqee organization, and I'm a pharmacist by profession. But we are gathered here today protesting against the desecration of the Jannat al-Baqee graves. This crime, this day marks the black day in the history of humanity, with the desecration of these holy grave sites in Jannat al-Baqee, which was the holiest cemetery in Islam. 95 years ago, when this crime happened, this is the first crime scene as soon as Ali Saud took power. And since then, after the desecration, crime after crime has been committed in the name of Islam. And thousands of protesters have been gathered here today. There are many faiths that are represented here. There are thousands of Muslims who are here today, but all of them are trying to say that Saudi Arabia does not represent us. The 1.6 billion Muslims that are in this world, they are peaceful Muslims, but Saudi Arabia does not represent us. Saudi Arabia represents Wahhabism, Wahhabi terrorism. Saudi Arabia represents ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda. These are all the offshoots of Wahhabi terrorism. We say rebuild Al-Baqee because the holy saints that are buried in the Baqee cemetery, they represent true Islam. They're the progeny of the Holy Prophet. They are the ones who, they were the pioneers of human rights. They were the pioneers of human rights and freedom fighters and martyrs that are buried there. 7,000 family members of the Holy Prophet are buried in this holy cemetery. And we say that the only reason why Yemen war crimes are happening, or Qatar happened, or Bahrain is happening, is because the world was silent on the first war crime that happened, which is the Baqee cemetery.
There are people leading the march in the front. We're going to walk this way. So please follow the people who are leading you. And we're going to go all the way to Lafayette Park. So please stay together, don't disperse.
Inshallah, we do. I mean, we are standing in this country. We have freedom of right. We are exercising our First Amendment right. And when we gain more momentum, and the entire world understands that there are two sides of the story. There is the true message of Islam that is all of us. We unite together, the Sunnis, the Sufis, the Shias, all of us together, and on humanitarian cause. Then all of us together can say under human rights violations that are happening in Saudi Arabia. We have already filed a case against Saudi Arabia. We have filed a universal periodic review that is coming up in United Nations. We've filed a complaint against them. And inshallah, our attorney, Tina Foster, who has fought the 9/11 cases, has already filed a case. And all the pilgrims abuse that happens in Saudi Arabia have been documented, and they have to give us an answer in United Nations.
What the message you are trying to send? Are you here to human rights or through the government?
Say the question again.
What the message you are trying to send? Are you here for just human rights issue or through the government?
We are not a political organization. We are here to say that we would like reform and we would like a change in the regime, but that is my personal view. That is not the organization's view. We're not a political organization. However, we need to say that just building an edifice, just building a shrine is not going to cure the situation. There's only one solution, which is a revolution that needs to happen. There's the human rights violations that are heinous human rights violations that are happening across the globe are we need to condemn and unite and condemn it. So silence has been the reason why these human rights violations continue to happen. However, we see martyrs like Sheikh Nimr who say that the power of the word is mightier than the roar of a bullet. And we gain power from martyrs like this. And we see that the revolution that is happening, let it be in Awamiya, let it be all across the globe, the revolutions that are happening and people are standing up and condemning these war crimes and Saudi oppression condemning, then inshallah we will have more power to this movement. Jazakallah.
Saudi.
state.
Saudi is a terrorist state.
Stop the killing, stop the hate! Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Saudi is a terrorist state!
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Saudi is a terrorist state!
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Saudi is a terrorist state!
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Saudi is a terrorist state!
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Saudi is a terrorist state!
Stop the killing, stop the hate! Saudi is a terrorist state! Stop the killing, stop the hate! Saudi is a terrorist state! Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Saudi is a terrorist state!
Saudi ISIS are the same!
Lecturer, writer, social media icon, and a social activist. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology with master's in education. She's a multilingual lecturer at madaris, churches, synagogues, and other interfaith gatherings. She's frequently on the radio and television airwaves preaching and advocating in the cause of Islam. I welcome her, and I request you all to welcome her with a loud salawat!
We welcome the people of the United States of America and the people from all over the world who are here today, and the people who are listening to our voices from all over the world. We are here to protest against oppression. We are here to speak against the violation of human rights. We are here to cause awareness about an occupation of an Islamic land by people who claim to be Muslims. The name might be a Muslim, but the action isn't. For there is no religion on earth that allows the desecration of holy sites, of graves, and that stops people from proclaiming their love with a freedom of speech and saying that we love those who stand for God, those who stand against oppression, those who teach us how to live a life full of morality and justice. And so we are here to tell you, Saudi and ISIS are the same. Saudi, ISIS are the same.
Only difference is the name!
Saudi, ISIS are the same.
Only difference is the name!
We protest the use of our tax dollars to pay for the killing of innocent children. Not another nickel, not another dime.
No more money for Saudi crime!
Not another nickel, not another dime.
No more money for Saudi
A few days ago, we celebrated Mother's Day. I too searched for a place where I could talk to my mother. And I found myself in a place where there was no marking. I found myself in a place where I was stopped from coming to the grave of who I call my true mother. And that is a lady who the Prophet of Islam himself called his mother. And that was the most blessed lady in the religion of Islam, accepted by Shia, Sunni, all of the Muslims. Bibi Fatima Zahra. Sanya. हाथ ऊंचा करें. People of the world, we are standing here in one of the rooftops of the world. You know why we stand here? Because this is a historical place. This is a place, Washington, D.C., where history is everywhere. Have you not visited the monuments here? Have you not seen the places where presidents have walked? Have you not seen the place where the Constitution was written based on justice and morality and the freedom of expression? That's what this world is about, where we walk where the greats have walked. And here we are, witnessing a demolition of historic sites in a land that calls itself Islamic, where the greats have walked, where the Muslims who fought amazing huge battles, those veterans, their graves are desecrated and hidden. There are no signs. There is no place where we can walk and say, this is where the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. This is what has happened in our land, Saudi Arabia, which was our land. And it has been occupied by people who call themselves Muslims. So if you are, then where is the place where the Prophet was born? If you are Muslims, then how come the wife of the Holy Prophet, who gave all her money so that Islam could have those battles fought, so that water could be bought for the Muslims, so that battle and all sorts of artillery could be purchased, slaves could be released, where is the grave of that lady? Where is the house that she lived in? There are toilets built on the house of Bibi Khadija. Shame, shame, shame. Shame, shame, shame. We live in a country that is a great country. And it hurts us to see that this great country has become not so great. Because our money is being used to outfit wars against children and women. And our money is being used to buy artillery and to outfit the army of Saudi Arabia so that more children can die. This is not Islam. Islam has never taught us to speak ill of the dead, let alone desecrate their remains. Tell me which country in the world allows graves to be disturbed? In the United States of America, it is a felony, punishable by fine, by imprisonment. It is a federal law. You are not allowed to touch even a stone on a grave. You are not allowed to even move a flower. I have the law written right here. I was going to read it to you, but I don't need to, because it's common sense. There is no religion, no country on earth that allows that we speak ill of the dead, let alone remove every memory of them. When I went to Saudi Arabia and I tried to visit the grave of the exalted lady named Fatima, peace be upon her. Do you know what happened? This is a country that does not honor the women. Do not be fooled if they let a woman drive, because they don't let a woman even walk on the streets of Medina. They don't let a woman approach a grave. For I have witnessed that and I have experienced that. I was told there was no way on earth that I would be allowed to visit a cemetery country does that? Where is the love if you were told in the Holy Quran that you must honor the family of the Holy Prophet? If you are Muslims, then you would follow just that. But no, you corrupt the message, you kill in the name of God, and you say you are Muslims? Saudi ISIS, you're the same!
Only difference is the name.
Saudi ISIS, you're the same!
Only difference is the name.
Saudi ISIS, you're the same!
Only difference is the name.
And when I saw that grave had been desecrated, I stood very far away, and yet I could see not only was it broken, not only were the women not allowed to go there, but there was a chain or fence around it, and then there was a wall around it, and then people were selling their wares on that place. People were buying stuff, haggling over prices on the sacred land where thousands of the companions of the Holy Prophet were buried. On the sacred land, his wives are buried, his children are buried, his grandchildren are buried. Where is the justice? Where is the Islam? And then when we sat there and we just said from afar away, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. And we said, oh Fatima, accept our salams. You know what they did? Those guards, they came with their whips and they told us to go. And they yelled at us and they screamed at us. And like children, we were told to scramble and run away from that place, or we would be arrested and beaten. And as a woman, I stood there and I was told, move or you will be hit. Is this Islam? Islam taught how to honor a woman. These people are giving us a bad name, and they are ruining the name of our faith, where women are honored, where graves are sacred. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to see what I saw when I tried to look at the grave of who I call my mother, who the Prophet called his mother. I will ask these gentlemen to raise this poster high up in the air so that the world can see this is what has happened to the family of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Hold it there. All you see are stones. All you see is broken land. And it's not just the graveyard. Entire mountains have been demolished. What do they say? They're expanding the mosque. They're not expanding the mosque. They are breaking mosques all over Mecca and Medina. And history is being obliterated as we speak. Those mountains that the Prophet talked about in very famous hadith, pointing to the mountain and saying, your blessings will be greater than this mountain, for example. That mountain no longer exists. The history is gone. We go to museums to look at little things that people ate from and people wrote. The poetry, the Qasid al-Burda that was written about the Holy Prophet, which was on his grave, has been painted on. There is no sign of the mountain. There are no signs of the places where the great ones walked. Everything is gone. And in the biggest expansion in Saudi, $13 billion worth, are being built palaces to honor those kings, to remove the king, the true king, Shah Medina, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. हाथ बुलंद करके नारे हैदरी हैदरी हैदरी. We raise our MashaAllah, do not feel that this is a lost cause. Do not feel that this doesn't mean anything. क्योंकि एक दिन था जब हुसैन भी अकेले थे. एक दिन था कि एक ऐसी जगह में शहीद किए गए कि ऐसा लग रहा था कि कोई दफन क्या करे, कोई याद भी नहीं करेगा. लेकिन आज आप यहाँ हैं. और आप कह रहे हैं लब्बैक या हुसैन,
लब्बैक या हुसैन,
लब्बैक या हुसैन,
लब्बैक या हुसैन,
this is
या हुसैन, लब्बैक या हुसैन,
we appeal,
या हुसैन, लब्बैक या
we appeal to UNESCO. This is the United Nations body that stands for freedom of expression, cultural expression, historical landmarks. And why is a graveyard not listed in their list of heritage sites? I visited an island called Reunion Island, owned by France. I went there to recite Majlis, by the way. 2,500 Muslims live there, Shia Muslims. And in that place, 40% of that island was untouchable by UNESCO. You couldn't touch a plant because it was protected land. Protected flowers, protected island and sand and water. So do people's bodies mean nothing to UNESCO? Do these graves, those graves of people that we hold most dearest, and not just the Shia, but every Muslim honors these dead, dearly beloved people. We appeal to UNESCO to do something and add these sites and stop this right now, which is happening as we speak. Bulldozers are coming down on all these areas. What's coming up? Big skyscraper towers made out of marble, overlooking the Kaaba. People who are watching the Kaaba, people doing tawaf, and they are in a state of najasat. All these things are happening with the money that the pilgrims are paying to go there. And when that is happening, there are also designer ihram being sold in those shopping centers. You're doing tawaf and you look up and you see these big towers. It is those idols that Imam Ali alayhi salam tried to get down. And now Ali Saud are putting it back up. How can this happen? How can we Muslims, how can the people of the world watch this and allow it to happen? We are oppressed and we speak for those who cannot speak. We speak for the voiceless ones who lay buried there and who cannot speak, and how powerful those must be. For even 1400 years after they have gone, the world cannot bear to see any sign of their existence. Oh, people of the world, understand why this is happening. This is not any way to make the Muslims grow and to shine. It is a way to make the family of the Holy Prophet be completely hidden. But as Bibi Zainab alayhi salam said in her famous sermon in front of Yazid, curse be upon him, she said, never will you be able to obliterate our mention. Never will you be able to wipe out our names. Ladies and gentlemen, you have come here from far and wide. In America, in a land where we have freedom of speech and yet we are scared to speak. And look at you, standing here in front of, I wish it was white side, but it is full of filth and hatred and darkness. We are here to bring the light. And you each are the light of Fatima Zahra. Rebuild Al-Baqee. Rebuild Al-Baqee. Subhanallah. Just remember that when Bibi Zainab alayhi salam saw her brother leaving the tent, she said to him, "Oh my brother, who do you leave us with? We are alone in this place." And he said, "Ya Zainab, I leave you in the hands of Allah." And Bibi looked out into that desert and she saw nobody. Nobody. And her brother says, "Hal min nasiyan surdo?" Is there anybody to assist us? And there is not one sound. But do you know that there were those who called out from the wombs of their mothers? They are those who are in heaven, those ruh that said, "Labbaik ya Hussein."
Labbaik ya Hussein. Labbaik ya Hussein.
You are those people. My brothers and sisters, I've received messages today from people all over the world who say, how can we do anything? Is any change going to happen? Why should we speak out? Why should we yell, put ourselves in danger when change will happen? How can a person who believes in the coming one talk like that? Did we ever think women would be able to drive in Saudi? But they are now. Happen, and that is even without our awaited one arriving. We are that army that Bibi Zainab was looking for. Keep building this army. Next year, this protest is going to be like the Women's March that happened, the largest one that has ever happened in the city of Washington, D.C. We're going to do that. You're going to bring each one of you 100 of your own. And we're going to fill these streets. And we're going to show, Ya Mahdi, we are ready. We are ready. It's a Friday. Ya Imam, we are ready. Your Fauj is ready. Rain or shine, sunshine or guns or bulldozers. Ya Imam, we are ready for you. We are ready for you. Ya Imam, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahum. Ya Mahdi, we wait for you. Ya Mahdi, we are here for you. We wait for Jesus to come and join our Mahdi. And together, you and us, we're going to bring justice and peace on this earth. Ya Imam Zamana, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahum sharif.
Thank you very much, sister. Very enlightening speech. We are already over time. I don't have time to welcome and recognize all the respected ulama and speakers that we have over here. Please excuse us for that, but we thank you for encouraging us and participating in this activity. Our last speaker is a dynamic young leader, upcoming leader of our community, Sayyid Bilal Razvi. Thoughtful and energetic speaker. He has been committed to the Baqee cause from very early in his life. Bilal is currently seeking higher seminary education at Najaf and Ashraf. I welcome him with a loud request for salawat from you all.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. I begin in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, to whom all praises belong. And may His peace and blessings be upon all of the prophets, from Adam to Noah to Moses to Jesus, and upon the seal of the prophets Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and his purified progeny. Respected brothers, sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When you go upon the United Nations UNESCO website, you'll see a quote which states that heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today and what we pass on to the future generations. Our natural and cultural heritage and legacy is both an irreplaceable source of inspiration and life for us. That when you pay attention to the second line, you find heritage has been described as a source of inspiration and a source of life. Building upon that line, you find that the destruction of heritage is not only a destruction of inspiration, but it is a destruction of livelihood. That's why that event, which took place on the 21st of April in the year 1925, is an event which we remember until today. For when they demolished those shrines, it was our hearts that were demolished upon that day. When they shattered those graves to pieces, it was our hearts that were broken to pieces upon that day. But to understand the value of this movement, we need to take one step back historically. For you find that 1925 was not the first time that Jannatul Baqee was destroyed. Over 100 years prior, you find Baqee was destroyed and it was rebuilt by the Ottomans. To understand the power of this movement, you have to see the value of that rebuilding within that time period. But from a second level, we have to take one step backwards in order to see what value this cause has to the non-Muslims. That's why very quickly, within 10 minutes, I'll discuss upon 5 points. Number one, What were the atrocities of the Saudi regime before 1925? And how did Christian Europe notice them within the 1800s? Number two, what does the Saudi ransack of Karbala in 1801 show to what extent they're willing to go to? Number three, how does this cause relate to the non-Muslims? Number four, how did the Saudi cult make it a part of their mission to remove the value of the Holy Prophet? And how can we use the Prophet's message to counteract this? And number five, what questions are there we need to ask ourselves in order to further the cause of Jannatul Baqee? You find when you go to the history of Baqee, an individual by the name of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, a man who was condemned by his father, a man whose own brother Sulaiman wrote a book against him, began to preach an ideology of takfir, an ideology that said, whoever does not believe in me, we are allowed to kill them. We are allowed to violate their women and their daughters. We are allowed to plunder their property. An ideology which stated that intercession is not allowed. An ideology which stated that the graves must be destroyed, despite the fact that the companions of the Prophet and the Muslims for 100 years have been visiting the graves of the saints. That you go to Baghdad, how many non-Shia go to the graves of Abdul Qadir al-Jilani? How many non-Shias go to the grave of Abu Hanifa within Baghdad? But you find in the year 1724, this individual who would go from city to city, he found refuge in a town known as Daria. Within Daria, he meets the Saud family. If you want to understand who Al Saud is today, then read their history. Within that time period in Najd, where there was no economy, the Al Saud family was known for being bandits. That when caravans would go, they would loot the caravans, they would plunder the caravans, they would attack the caravans. Find Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. He makes this alliance with Muhammad bin Saud, in which Saud would govern the political end and Wahhab under the ideological end. You find this served Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Why? Because for the first time, now he has political influence to increase his spread. But from the side of the Saudis, why did this interest them? You find their history is in banditry. The moment you have an ideology which allows for takfir, which allows for people to be called disbelievers, it allowed them to continue their ways of robbing and looting and plundering. And you find this alliance, it was formed. If you want to look at what extent they went to, in the year 1802, they attacked the city of Ta'if. You know, when they attacked the city of Ta'if, the historian by the name of Zahavi, he writes that first they went to a woman who was nursing her child. They killed the woman and the child. After that, they go to a man reciting the Quran. After that, they go through the markets and the mosques and the streets, and they kill one by one until less than 20 individuals were alive in the city of Ta'if. You find Christian Europe, it noticed that something was brewing in the Middle East, and you find the impact of that is understood by us today when we see Al-Qaeda and Taliban and Boko al-Haram and ISIS. You know, when you see terrorism, correct? You try to find a common root. The common root of terrorism within the world is Saudi Arabia. The common root of terrorism within the world is Wahhabism, the state-sponsored creed of Saudi Arabia. You know, notice I say the word creed. I don't say religion, for religion preaches love. Religion preaches unity. It is only this cult which preaches hate. And if you want to see to what extent they are willing to go, in 1801, they go to the land of Karbala. Some may say they destroy in their own land, maybe we can accept it, but they go and terrorize the land of Karbala. They destroy the shrine within Karbala. They burn the city to the ground. They kill 5,000 individuals, looting the shrine of Imam al-Hussein, taking 6,000 1,000 camels worth of gold back towards Saudi Arabia. Now do you understand why I said this group is a group of bandits? When you want to understand these people, you see that there is no limit to these people. And this is why in 1806 they destroyed Jannatul Baqee for the first time. And when this happened, all of the Muslim world was in outcry. But in 1816, under Sultan Mahmud II, you find the Ottomans, they take over Mecca and Medina again and they rebuild Jannatul Baqee. If you want to see the power of the rebuilding of Jannatul Baqee, now you listen. History, it states that all of Cairo was in celebration for 5 days upon the rebuilding of Jannatul Baqee. Cairo, the biggest city within the Muslim world. If you want a stabilized Middle East, that is there not a country in the world within whose interest a stabilized Middle East is not there? If you want a stabilized Middle East, you find that Jannatul Baqee, it plays a role with that unity. And you find these individuals, that their destruction was an attack against the Prophet himself. You know, Stephen Schwartz is an individual who wrote a book, The Two Faces of Islam, the House of Saud from Tradition to Terror. He's the Washington bureaucrat chief of the Jewish Forward, a Jewish individual, and he is the writer of The Voice of America. Within that book, on page 70, he writes that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, this is a Jewish individual writing, that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the only way he could get people to follow his radical interpretation is if he removed the message of the Prophet, especially his message of compassion and mercy, and amputate it from the doctrine of Islam. To amputate it from the doctrine of Islam. That's why you find that if they have La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah upon their flags, it's not because they have love for the Prophet. It's only a political move. That's why they have it there. That these were those individuals. They were ready to destroy the shrine of the Prophet. The only reason they didn't destroy that shrine is because of a group of Muslims in India. They protested at the British embassy. To get in favor with the British, they stopped the destruction of the shrine of the Prophet. This is how far they've removed the Prophet of God. Which Prophet? That Prophet of God who was described as a mercy for all of mankind. That Prophet of God upon whom in the Quran it says, "O Muhammad, if you were hard-hearted, they would move away from you." That Prophet of God, when he writes the Constitution of Medina, a majority of those clauses for non-Muslims, that Prophet of God who embolized the spirit of the Quran. You know, the Quran says, "Inna fatahna laka fatham mubin," that we've given you a manifest victory. But what was this manifest victory? Was it Badr? Was it Uhud? Was it Khandak? It was Khaybar? It was none of those. It was a peace treaty by the name of Hudaybiyah. You see, when the Quran, it talks about a peace treaty, it says that is the manifest victory of Islam. But you know, when they destroyed these shrines, an action can be an endpoint or it can be a mean. You find that this action was not an endpoint. This action was a means to remove the memory of the Prophet. That's why I remember my brother, the poet Nuri Sardar, would say that when we saw those shrines demolished, we began to recite their praise. For how great must these individuals be